friends. I am Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And it is a dreary day outside. It's raining pretty good. You can hear it against the windows next to me if you hear that kind of drumming, dribbling sound in the background. That's what it is. And welcome to late fall Iowa, right? And there's Sissy, the neighbor cat, who disappeared on us for a week, and we really gave up hope on her. Just showed up yesterday. Now we're in mom's wife's not letting her out of the house now. Anyway, wife and I went out to see a movie last night, and we went and seen Dune. Now, science fiction is not her forte, but it is mine. And of all the game systems and book franchises and stuff I have enjoyed over the years since I was a child, Dune is one in the top five. It's They never had a really decent role-playing game system for it until recently, I guess. I haven't had the finances to just buy it to review it or to look at it or to experience it myself personally. And if any of you guys have and you want to put your 2 cents worth in, please, by all means, do that. Add that to the comments. I remember was it the mid-'80s version? And it was a really good series. Don't be wrong. I liked the uh, original adaptation of Dune, the movie, and I acknowledge that one of the downsides, of course, is with a movie is you only got so many hours to cram a lot of material. And I've been a big advocate of this mindset for most of my life, that movies based on books tend to be much better, although chopped up, than books based on movies. Because let's look at Star Wars. And I love the original franchise, Lucas's work. I'm not too thrilled with some of the stuff that Disney is, some of the stuff that Disney has played. They've had some good stuff, but they've had some really crappy stuff, and they've done some pretty shady, sad things towards the older base, such as myself, who are such diehard fans for most of their lives, too much to their detriment. They really dropped the ball there, and they should be ashamed of themselves. But this isn't about that. The series of Dune, based on the Herbert's books, is in a very deep, elaborate story, and there's multiple layers to it, much going on there, and the Dune universe was greatly expanded in some years later when we got to Herbert and Anderson working together on these fantastic additions to the lore. And some of them are considered lore, some of them are not considered lore. I take them all as lore, and I have read every lick of them, every one of them. I own as many of them as I can. I get them at the discount bookstore whenever I see them. So that's where most of these versions came from. I remember the Machine War series, and there's something dystopic and calling to me about the world set and the philosophy that's deep in the series. And so when I seen the movies, like I said, the original movie that I saw uh, did a really good job, I think. I mean, considering the amount of time they had to deal with, they really didn't have a lot of time. They did not have a lot of time to devote to the book. So Peter Jackson's versions of Lord of the Rings is a grand example of it as well. 3 books, 3 movies, and he did his best, but he had to consolidate and cut out things and leave things out. The movies would have easily been twice as long as what they were to really cover every bit of the story. But he did a credible job of doing that to the story. I have mixed opinions on The Hobbit because Hobbit, unlike The Lord of the Rings, was only a single book, as you well know, and I assume you know. And to create a trilogy out of it, he really had to ad lib and add stuff. And he also tried to modernize some of the themes. He tried to bring our real world social philosophies and political correctness to writings that were created 100 years ago or 70, 80 years ago. It's just not really true to the story. So while The Hobbit, the movies are good, they're great movies. Don't get me wrong, I really like them. Like I said, once again, I've seen some of the Star Wars movies that Disney put out, and I'm totally appalled by them. And I have yet, and it's just a testament just how much upset I am about how Disney handled, or elements within Disney handled the Rise of Skywalker series, the new trilogy, that I never went and saw the third one. I never saw it at the theater, and I have yet to rent it or view it at home. Someday maybe I will do that, but I absolutely have not done it because I'm just sick to my stomach as to what they did to the characters, to the series, to the entire franchise, and they spit in the face of the lion's share of the fanboys like myself, in my personal opinion. Now, Dune, like I said, it's a hard series to cover well, and to do it in one movie is it's hard. And they did it the first movie; they did an incredible job, but they still left out a lot of the nuance, a lot of the flavor, a lot of the essence. So I went with an open mind to see the new movie, and it struck me some significant differences, starting with it's a much longer movie than I expected. I expected it to do like they did the first movie because I never saw anything suggesting that there'd be more than one. And my understanding is that there may not be. The only way for them to do a sequel to this movie is that if this movie needs to do well at the box office, it needs to pay off, and I think it has the chops. And if you are a fan of Dune, I would recommend seeing this in the theater, if for no other reason than to help spur on the possibility of a follow up to finish the story, because they got about halfway through the novel with the movie. Another thing that they did a credible job is they played down the blood, gore, and violence of the first movie. We know that the Harkonnens are very, very wicked, evil people. And we know that death and destruction is part and parcel of the Dune franchise. Now, the first movie kind of went out on a limb with the amount of gore that they applied. Now, it's not like it was chock-a-block full of it, but it was much more prevalent in this new Frank Herbert version, the Dune series that we have for a new movie. And their story is more in tune with the philosophy and flavor of the novel, which really, like I said, to my personal opinion, for what it's worth, it's really worth going to see. I was kind of distressed towards the middle, toward the latter half, when I realized it just seemed to be, it kept going on, and I was thinking, Jesus, they're not going to finish this movie unless it's a 5-hour movie, because they just hadn't gotten much further along than the original movie. Towards the end, and then it dawned on me that they absolutely have to intend on doing a sequel and possibly a trilogy. They briefly mentioned later when I come home last night, I did some googling, and they talked about the possibility of trilogy, there being a third movie, which would be an adaptation of the Dune Messiah or something to that effect. I know that there's a rich world there, a rich universe. It's just like the role playing. I don't recall there ever being a Dune RPG back in the 80s or before or after that. It wasn't until recently there's a company that manufactured one. And like I said, I saw that on Google last night too. And once again, it's hard for me to drop 50, $60 on something today unless it really, I feel there's a payoff to that. And I can't make that argument. You know, my BattleTech is another story, and I'll be doing, if you're following my videos on my BattleTech stuff, I've got another one that's pending, that's got to do with the novels and how the stories all interact, and my sudden resurgence and hunger for things BattleTech. It is what it is. But like I said, you know, when we come down to the Dune universe, there's such a variety of wonderful stuff that it's a beautiful series, and the options for play as a game are pretty deep. As just an entertainment factor from the novel perspective, uh, Brian Herbert and Kevin Anderson have done a spectacular job of keeping to that flavor without going off on some crazy tangents, as some authors might often try to do. See, there is my biggest gripe about the Disney franchise of Star Wars, is how they just seem to, between the writers and producers, absolutely have, or directors absolutely having no freaking clue as to what the flavor and the spirit of Star Wars is, trying to put their own version and twist on it, trying to create some weird alternate universes. We see that over and over again in some of the comic based movies. The Batman's great. Here we have yet another Batman. So and yet how many Spider-Mans? I mean, it's just you just keep rehashing the same story over and over again because you're looking for something that you just seem to not be able to tap into. And there's been some great Batman movies, and they should have left them be and built upon those with new stuff using that world and not trying to rehash everything. I mean, they're entertaining, yes, but how many times can you really successfully reboot a franchise and not suffer for it? And that's where Disney is suffering right now because of some of their attitudes towards the original or their versions of Star Wars. And they've gone off and just, I've seen that in the latter movies from Star Trek. Well, they're good movies, don't get me wrong, but they were all, it didn't take long for me to think, geez, this has to be an alternate universe setting because it's so obscured. It's so, I don't want to say violated, but it's definitely not the way it ought to be in my mind. But then that's just my mind. So, hey, if you guys get an opportunity, this is my 2 cents on, or 10 cents worth on what like I said, the Great Dune saga and the latest version of it. By all means, if you can get an opportunity, go see that movie. Until next time, this is Rick, and you guys have a great weekend.